Where on earth is Chris Jones? That's what everybody wants to know. When will he be here? When will the extension get done? Matt Derrick's going to help us figure that out today on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, friends and neighbors. We've officially hit the waiting period now as we wait to see what's going to happen for this 2023 team. Thanks for being with us here today and making us your first listen. Make another Locked On show your next listen, because we're here for free every day, 5 days a week, all year long, whether I'm on vacation or not, something like that. On Wednesdays, you get to talk to Matt Derrick. He's here from ChiefsDigest.com. How are you, Matt?
I am doing pretty well, Ryan. How about yourself today?
I'm keeping it together. We thank you guys for being here. Make sure you like, sub, and hit the bell on YouTube. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting, NFL33.com, and RGR Football, which I tend to screw around and have fun over there too, so check us all out. Matt's the guy on the inside for us, and there was this giant hubbub made, at least on social media, about Chris Jones didn't show up to get his ring. And if I can understand why people put these things together, if there's anything that you're going to come around for, whether you want an extension or not, it's to go get that giant chunk of bling. He comes back on social and says that he was sick, et cetera, et cetera. Is there any fire in this smoke that the fan base is concerned about?
To me, no. I mean, it didn't really even concern me, Thursday night being there at the ring ceremony before we found out that, Chris had a reason why he wasn't there. He was at the White House 2 weeks ago. So I don't think that you can really take that as much of a sign of anything. I mean, yeah, it's unusual for Chris to miss something like that, but if he's sick, that's the legitimate reason, and not feeling well, that's a legitimate reason for not being there. And yeah, and even though the last ring ceremony was different than this one, that's something he's done before. So, I can see, maybe it wasn't a high priority. And honestly, I mean, if I'm his agents, I probably would have advised him to either skip it or make sure that if you go to the ring ceremony, you sneak in a back door and don't go down the red carpet and you don't talk to the media. Because right now, anything that Chris Jones says about his contract or anything like that is news. And I don't think either side really wants to make a whole lot of news. I mean, there's a reason why when we've had a chance to talk to Andy Reid or Brett Veach or anybody else, I mean, don't really say much. Neither side is negotiating publicly. And I don't think Chris's camp is ready to do that yet either. So it didn't bother me. Doesn't change anything the way I feel about, where talks are. There's other factors that are bigger than this for sure. And I certainly don't think that Chris not coming to the ring ceremony was any kind of a sign or indication of anything.
Yeah, I have to say there are definitely bigger factors. It's the thing behind the dollar sign, all those zeros that we're expecting. At the end of the day, it looks more and more like your proclamation a couple months ago is going to be dead on, that it'll be the day before camp or something like that, that the deadline gets the deal done. I know that they've expressed, at least there's been rumor through some of the media outlets, that there's a little bit of an impetus to get it done before then. I feel like that still exists, but this is the time when players go away and they're trying to rest and recuperate. I feel like we've missed that window, and now it is confirmed that it's going to be just before camp starts, or maybe even a couple of days into camp for all I know. How do you feel about the current temperature of the situation?
Yeah, I mean, and let's say one thing specifically. I think both sides actually want to get something done sooner than later. However, there's the one boot out there, the one shoe that we're waiting to drop that would affect this, which is the Quinnen Williams contract extension talks with the Jets. That would change things dramatically overnight, because if Quinnen Williams gets an extension done, I'll say it. I mean, my deadline, my over-under, once again, on Chris Jones getting a deal done is 23 and a half hours. I mean, that, and vice versa. I mean, if Chris Jones were to sign, Quinnen Williams probably gets done, but right now there's a game of chicken going on. And the reality of it is that to a degree, Chris's camp is probably in the losing side, because, the Jets can make it, I think, a little bit easier, because they're talking about, tacking on to a rookie contract. There's really no impetus there. I mean, for Chris, they need to get the done deal done now, because he doesn't want to be playing any games going forward or anything like that without an extension, without some new money into this contract. And there is no benefit whatsoever for veteran players to hold out. If anything, there is just nothing but punishment, because the new collective bargaining agreement makes it much more difficult to hold out. You get fines are not eliminated. You can't negotiate them away. So any fines that he gets incurred by missing any training camp time, going to be money lost. And at first that's a small amount, but eventually it adds up to real money. So, hey, is Chris interested in missing any time? Well, Andy Reid told us last week he doesn't think so. I mean, he believes that Chris Jones will be there at the beginning of training camp. I think he will too, regardless of whether the contract situation is, unless the two sides are just mammothly apart. But maybe it's for better or for worse, because my fear going into this whole thing during the offseason was, what if somebody signs a ridiculous $29 million, free agent deal or an extension early on the process? And all of a sudden Chris Jones is like, okay, well, I want to be paid 30, and that's closer to the 31.5 of Aaron Donald. Maybe you had a Tyreek Hill situation, where the Chiefs are like, well, okay, we'll trade you because we're not paying that. At this point in the process, I don't think that's realistic on either side. I mean, Chiefs aren't trading Chris Jones in July. They're good. I think, and Chris Jones wants to stay in Kansas City. So I think they're going to get it done. And if you're going to get it done, there's no reason just to not get it over with, extending it. Because remember, I mean, like I said, because Chris is under contract, it would be different if he wasn't, but he is. So if he doesn't show up, it's going to cost him money.
And that's the bottom line all the way around for everyone involved. It's trying to find that happy medium and get the thing done. I think we're both still optimistic that's going to happen. And it has a huge effect on whether this team can complete their task and try to go back to the Super Bowl. We're going to talk about that later in the show. But first, we got to get to the other rumor that this is kind of the first domino for, and that's the DeAndre Hopkins deal. We'll talk about that right after I tell you guys about our pals over at FanDuel, because right now is the time to get in it. The NBA is over with, obviously NHL. It's all coming around until football season kicks off and gets started again. In the meantime, you can sign up for baseball right now. Go to FanDuel.com and get signed up at America's #1 sportsbook and get in the action now. They're still offering new customers, when you sign up, a no-sweat first bet. And that makes it super simple and good for you, because you can lay a bet, and if it loses, you are eligible for up to $1,000 in bonus bets come back to your account just for losing the first round. Super, super simple. That no sweat first bet is available to new customers over at FanDuel.com/lockedon. Go check that out, because $1,000, it is a no sweat first bet. And that's in bets back to your account if your first bet loses, only at FanDuel today. So go check that out. FanDuel.com/lockedon. You can see it right underneath me. FanDuel's the official partner of Major League Baseball, of the NBA, and most importantly, for everyone that you guys know and love, it is the NFL. So we'll get back to that when you check out FanDuel. Now, for me, if I'm laying odds, not only is Chris Jones back, but it seems that everything is pointing towards a big addition coming in to the roost here. Chris is the first domino, and we've talked about that all summer, pre-draft. Like, we've known that. But we're going to put our caps on here because we do think it gets done. Report this week is that DeAndre Hopkins making comments that it's about contending. And it's down basically to the two teams that have absolutely no cap space to spare in the Buffalo Bills and our Kansas City Chiefs. So that's got to happen. Now, I reviewed the Bills cap foundation, and they have some moves they can make too. Nothing's quite as simple as just extending Chris Jones. So my question to you is, how serious do you think that is a driver as well, adding to the pressure to get the Jones deal done right now?
Well, I mean, it certainly helps that it feels like the field is narrowed. I mean, if DeAndre Hopkins, because I said all along, I mean, if DeAndre Hopkins wants to go to a winner, the Chiefs should be obviously the number one choice. Buffalo would probably be the second choice. And the only thing that would give Buffalo an advantage at this point is that right now they've got more salary cap space. If Buffalo wanted to get a deal done and it's a doable amount for them, I mean, there's all sorts of crazy shenanigans cap-wise that you can pull off to get it done. I mean, the reality of it is, though, with the Chiefs, with their cap space, I know the NFLPA salary cap report puts Chiefs about $1 million. Now, the super secret NFL salary cap report supposedly puts Chiefs at like 300,000. Either one of those numbers, they have no room to get a deal done right now. Even if they wanted to do one of these wacky, 1 year, 4 year void deals, and then spread out a bunch of signing bonus money over 5 seasons, they couldn't even do that right now. Buffalo could. And I would worry, if I'm a Chiefs fan, that Buffalo might have more motivation, because things certainly seem to be going south with Stephon Diggs right now.
Yeah.
And that might motivate them even more. Now, conversely, if I'm DeAndre Hopkins, am I looking at that situation and thinking, wait a minute, there's something that doesn't smell right in Buffalo. Maybe I do need to go to Kansas City. If that's the case, yeah, there's literally almost nothing the Chiefs can do to clear up cap space for DeAndre Hopkins in the way that they are comfortable doing. They could. I mean, there's some deals. I mean, they could restructure Joe Thuney. It's possible that they could, move some of Patrick Mahomes' money around. There's a couple of other contracts where they could squeeze a few pennies out here and there.
Right.
But Chris Jones is what they were planning on all along. I mean, that's the chunk where they were planning on for their money going into the season, which, Brett Veach usually likes to have about $5 to $10 million of cap space going into the year. Chiefs do not like doing those phony void year deals on the back of contracts. So that's why I don't think that they're going to do that. Then it's going to come down to what's DeAndre Hopkins' price is. I mean, I still think if he wants an Odell Beckham Jr. type deal and he wants $15 million for 23, that's a tougher deal for the Chiefs. Buffalo, I think, might have an easier time with that. I just don't know if the Chiefs are going to go that high. They probably should, because I think there's a reasonable chance you just win the Super Bowl if you get DeAndre Hopkins on this team. But so maybe it's a price to pay. But we'll see. I think what you're hearing from DeAndre Hopkins is exactly what you want to hear if you want him in KC.
Yeah. Well, and I take it from this standpoint as well. For him, yes, there's circumstances, clearer field to being the number one in Kansas City than there is in Buffalo because of the Diggs situation and all this drama, right? Okay, so fair enough. But it does put the impetus back on the Bills. So if somebody's going to come from behind and feel that like they need to kick it up, because I agree with you, I can't even believe that we're having the conversation of DeAndre Hopkins being like the linchpin that puts Kansas City in like the land of the unbeatable. I mean, we're talking like 17-0 possibilities at that, folks. I'll be the first to hype it up if it happens, because it's plausible at that point. But it makes me go back to Brandon Beane's been very coy about this whole process, but I think he would start to feel the pressure in this particular asset that could come onto either roster, could put them over the top. And so I feel like they might have to make a bigger push to go get D-Hop in order to say that they're competitive and or feel that they can overcome their lacking pieces right now.
Yeah, and that to me is the difference between where Kansas City and Buffalo are right now, because Buffalo they don't have a Super Bowl. They don't have that championship. And they've gotten close. I mean, so many times, and they're close again right now. That this is a push your chips all in moment. I mean, for Buffalo, they should. I would have no qualms if I'm Buffalo just saying, you do what, even if this means that you're going to be in salary cap heck in 2 or 3 years, you do everything you can to try and win now, because it's only going to get harder when Josh Allen starts making a ton of money. The Chiefs, meanwhile, have got 2 Super Bowls. They don't have to be in that spot. They did that. They pushed all their chips in, 4 years ago when they went out and got Sammy Watkins and Frank Clark and made all those moves and everything. So they've done it and it worked out for them. So, they're not in that spot. The Chiefs don't need to mortgage the future to get DeAndre Hopkins because they're more interested in making sure that they've got pieces for Patrick Mahomes for the years ahead. They're not worried about 1 year. So I think Buffalo certainly should be the more motivated buyer. Whether they will be is another question, but I feel like with all of everything that's going on in Buffalo right now, they should be pushing them to get D-Hop. I just wonder if that's going to be enough.
I think so as well. And they've got other things going on. We're going to preview the contenders coming up in the next couple of weeks, folks. We're going to preview the position battles as well. So remember, if you're not an everydayer yet, go become one. Get linked right here. Sub, like, bell, the whole 9 yards, and get on the Spotify or the Apple Podcast, any of those platforms. We need to talk about what all this means and what it's all working towards, and that would be a repeat. But I do want to drop a note for those of you that have been asking, if you want any of the Chiefs Kingdom gear, any of my stuff, you can get it over at RGR Football. That'll take you to the site, and you can get in on any of those videos. There's links all over the place, so check it out. Some unique stuff. I want to talk about what this gets them, how far they're down the line, and how unbeatable could it become right after this. Thanks for bearing with us. I'm a little yacky today, so I'm taking it a little bit. But I want to double down on what we mentioned in the last segment, because some people will just tune in and see this part. So let's put it this way. I will have formal discussions about, can this team go undefeated if DeAndre Hopkins is on this offense? That is clear to me, but I might be crazy. Like, you tell me that addition in this offense with this year, with this young wide receiver crew, what does that do in your estimation, Matt? A more reserved and refined opinion.
Yeah, I think DeAndre Hopkins and Chester McLaughlin are a little bit different when you're talking about the last time that there was maybe a Chiefs 16-0 undefeated hype. I think we'll probably be more legitimate this time with this team and this quarterback. But I mean, I probably won't be on that bandwagon because I think it's just too hard to do. I don't know if any team's ever going to get to 17-0 because that's going to be really, really hard. But I wouldn't blame anybody for doing it because, I mean, if you've got that, if you had DeAndre Hopkins this offense, it would just be hard to see this team ever being held under 20 points. It would just be hard to see them ever having a bad day of offense. And if that's the case, I mean, there's no game that this team should win. And right now, remember, I mean, they're the favorites to win every game on their schedule as it is. I mean, I still don't think they're going to, but that's just where this team is and how close they are.
And I know, I'm not sure where Vegas has them this week, but I do believe they're the favorite to win the Super Bowl this year as well. Now, that's a feat in and of itself. Repeating back to back is not common. And the fact that Vegas is there, that's one thing. And I know they have their prognosticators and they do X number of things way better than anybody else does. That's fine. But that's right now without the man on the roster. You add him, and I just can't help but think that it makes them the favorite all the way across the board. But that's not the only position they could add. Say they lose. Say they lose and D-Hop is a Bill and he and Stephon Diggs are blood brothers and raising each other's kids and like it's all copacetic and perfect in Buffalo. What can the Chiefs do to raise their bar as well? There's another high-profile free agent out there that I think might be a nice second in this group. I can't bring in Dalvin Cook and say that you can be the starter because I don't think he can sustain a 17, let alone a 20-game season. But do you think that in your estimation that that's even on the table? Is running back a position that you even want to look at to spend that kind of money?
I think it's certainly something I would not be surprised if Brett Veach is exploring just to see what the price point would be, how it would work. Let's be realistic. I mean, Dalvin Cook would slip into this offense and at his best would be an absolute beast. I mean, that would be equivalent to me of swapping in kind of a Kareem Hunt. Now, Dalvin may not be that at that point in his career. I mean, I still think he's a really, really good player, but let's face it, he's not a youngster anymore. Running back position is something that wears down, and that's why the Vikings were willing to walk away from him. It's running back is the disposable position in this league. And I'm hoping to have this conversation soon with Brett Veach and really ask him just about his philosophy on running back and maybe how it's changed even since he's become GM, because obviously since the Clyde pick, the Chiefs have put almost zero resources into the running back room. They haven't had a 1,000-yard running back since Kareem Hunt, and all they've done is go to 3 Super Bowls, win 2 of them, and almost go to 2 more. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, how important is the running back spot? I mean, yeah, we were all talking about that if Clyde came in and was the second coming of Brian Westbrook, that Chiefs would be unbeatable. And maybe he would have, but I don't know if it would work. I think that there's other teams that would be more competitive, price wise for the Chiefs to beat. And I don't think that they're willing to put a lot of money in the running back spot, especially where they are cap wise. I mean, and given the choice between Dalvin Cook and DeAndre Hopkins, I think they'd probably still take Hopkins.
Yeah, I have to think so as well. But that I think is much a conversation about the league, about the modern game than it is about the Chiefs. So what if his contract isn't out there? What if his demands in Dalvin Cook is like you said, a beast when healthy, but his age is caught up to him. What if he can't get a contract that he wants? Are the Chiefs even in the market at 5 or 6 for a single season? A one at bat for him? Would that even come onto the table?
Well, and then, hey, is that why Dalvin is looking forward to his point in his career? It's kind of the same conversation we're having with D-Hop, where if he's ring shopping, is about the only way that I think that you could get him. And with Dalvin and the running back position, honestly, I wouldn't begrudge him if he wasn't ring shopping, because this might be his last chance to get a contract and to cash in. Now, the tough thing is that this time of year, nobody has a lot of money to throw around. So the 3-year, guaranteed money deal may not be out there. And coming to Kansas City, there's no guarantee that he would be, I don't know if the Chiefs would be willing to tell him, hey, you'd be the featured back here. Because, there would be some concerns about disrupting the chemistry of that offense, that running back room, and the whole group. Because, these guys won a Super Bowl. They love Isaiah Pacheco, especially the way that he played injured at the end of last year. Telling him that he's lost his job would not go over well, I don't think, in that locker room. They would understand that it's a business, but I don't think it would be a big hit. And same thing with Jerick McKinnon. I think that would, really disrupt your chemistry. So, if I'm Brett Veach, I kick the tires on it. I see what it would cost. You never know. But I just think it would be really difficult to make it work. And Andy Reid probably could, but it would have a degree of difficulty to it to me.
And it would be an ongoing struggle, I would think, all season long. It's not something where you can right the ship and move on. It's going to be there. So I'm with you. I'm interested to see what they do and who comes next. And folks, we're going to start looking ahead officially. As of this segment, we are on to this coming season. We only have a few weeks. 5 weeks, is it? Until we're going to see practice happening. So be ready. We're going to get you ready with all of our projections, all the segments that we need to do, Matt. Thanks for your time and giving us your insight that we can get only from you.
It's always a pleasure, Brian. Take care, everybody.
Everyone have a great one. We'll be back in the next couple of days. We're going to cover, I think, everything that you want to see. We appreciate you spending your time with us and getting subbed and the whole 9 yards. So thanks for being with us today, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.